By the 17th time he blamed me for his own mistakes in front of our biggest client, I stopped counting. I just sat there in that conference room, watching my son systematically destroy the reputation I'd spent 42 years building. The client's expression had shifted from confused to disgusted somewhere around accusation number 12. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the moment I lose everything. But I didn't lose everything. I just lost my illusions. My name is Robert Harrison. I'm 63 years old, and until 3 months ago, I owned Harrison Construction, a mid-sized commercial building company in Phoenix, Arizona. I say owned because technically, I still own it. But nobody knows that yet. Not my son, not his lawyer wife, not the business partners he thought he was so cleverly positioning himself with. They'll find out soon enough. Let me back up. I started Harrison Construction in 1982 with a pickup truck, a toolbox, and more determination than sense. My wife Sarah and I had just had our son Michael, and I needed to provide. We lived in a trailer for the first 5 years. Sarah worked double shifts as a nurse while I took every job I could find, from fixing porches to remodeling kitchens. By the time Michael was 10, we'd moved into a real house. By the time he was 15, Harrison Construction was employing 20 people and bidding on commercial projects. I gave Michael everything I never had: private school, college fund, a truck when he turned 16. I thought I was being a good father. I thought I was setting him up for success. I should have seen the warning signs earlier. When he was in high school, he'd tell his friends I was just a contractor, saying it like I cleaned toilets for a living. In college, he'd introduce me as his business associate at company events, never as his father. After he graduated with his business degree, he joined the company as a project manager, and Sarah was so proud. "He's following in your footsteps," she'd say. But he wasn't following in my footsteps. He was erasing them. It started small. In meetings with subcontractors, he'd say things like, "My father's getting older. His memory isn't what it used to be." When I'd question a cost estimate that seemed inflated, or he'd tell clients, "Dad's methods are a bit outdated, but I'm working on modernizing our approach," implying I was some dinosaur holding the company back. I let it slide. He was young, eager to prove himself. I remembered being that age, wanting to make my mark. And Sarah would say, "Robert, don't be so sensitive. He's just trying to establish himself." Then Sarah died. Sudden heart attack, no warning. I was 61, and the woman I'd spent 39 years with was gone in an afternoon. Michael was there at the funeral, of course. Gave a beautiful eulogy about how his mother had been the heart of our family. He cried at the graveside. I thought maybe this would bring us closer. It didn't. 2 weeks after we buried Sarah, Michael came to me with papers. "Dad, I think it's time we formalize the succession plan," he said. "You're not getting any younger. And after Mom, well, you need to think about legacy." The papers would have made him president of the company, with me as chairman emeritus. Fancy title, no real power. I told him I needed time to think about it. He got angry, said I was being stubborn, that I didn't trust him, that after everything he'd done for the company, this was how I repaid him. Everything he'd done for the company. I'd founded it before he was born. But somehow in his mind, he was the one who'd built it. I didn't sign the papers. That's when things got worse. In client meetings, he started openly contradicting me. If I suggested one approach, he'd propose the opposite and explain why his way was better. If I quoted a timeline, he'd say, "Actually, Dad's estimates tend to run long. We can do it faster." If I discussed budget, he'd tell clients, "My father's from a different era. He overbuilds everything. We can be more cost-effective." At first, clients were uncomfortable. You could see it on their faces, this young man undermining his own father in front of them. But Michael was smooth, charming, convincing. He had his mother's charisma and none of my rough edges. Gradually, clients started directing their questions to him instead of me. Gradually, I became furniture in my own conference room. The employees noticed. Carlos, my longest-serving foreman, pulled me aside one day. "Boss, I don't mean to overstep, but the way your son talks to you, it ain't right. I told Carlos not to worry about it. Family business, I said. We'd work it out, but we didn't work it out. It escalated. 6 months after Sarah's death, we were bidding on the Meridian Tower project. $3 million, 15-month timeline, our biggest contract ever. The client was Meridian Development Group, represented by James Chen, their VP of Operations. We'd been courting this project for 8 months. I'd personally met with Chen 4 times, walked him through our portfolio, explained our safety record, our on-time completion rate, everything. The final presentation meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday in March. I prepared for 2 weeks, double-checked every number, every timeline, every specification. This contract would set us up for the next 5 years. This was legacy-defining work. Michael insisted on co-presenting. We're a team, Dad, he said. This is too important for just one person. I should have said no. We walked into that conference room at Meridian's downtown office at 2 p.m. James Chen was there with 3 other executives. They had our proposal printed out, marked up with questions and notes. Good sign. They'd done their homework. I started the presentation, went through our company history, our relevant experience, our team qualifications. Everything was going smoothly. Chen was nodding, taking notes. Then we got to the technical specifications section. That's when Michael struck. Before my father continues, he said, interrupting me mid-sentence, I need to clarify something. The timeline he's about to present is based on his traditional approach, which frankly is outdated. I stopped, looked at him. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Chen. What are you doing? I asked quietly. Being honest with our potential client, Michael said smoothly. Dad, you know as well as I do that your 15-month estimate is padded. We can do this in 12 months, maximum. First time, I tried to recover. Michael, the 15 months accounts for weather delays, inspection schedules, and material lead times. It's realistic. See, this is what I mean, Michael said to Chen. Like I wasn't even there. My father's risk-averse to a fault. He overestimates timelines because he's worried about everything that could go wrong, instead of planning for what will go right. Second time, Chen shifted in his seat. Uncomfortable, I pressed on, moved to the budget section, explained our cost breakdown, our material sourcing, our labor allocation. Michael interrupted again. I need to point out that these material costs are inflated. Dad insists on premium suppliers when equivalent materials cost 30% less. Third time, those suppliers are reliable, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We've worked with them for 20 years. We know their quality. And that's exactly the problem, Michael told the room. My father's loyal to a fault. He doesn't adapt to market changes. There are newer suppliers with better prices and comparable quality, but Dad won't even consider them because he's stuck in his ways. Fourth time, one of the other Meridian executives, a woman named Patricia, spoke up. Is there disagreement within your company about how this project would be managed? No disagreement, Michael said quickly. Just generational difference. My father built this company using methods that worked in the 80s and 90s. But construction has evolved. I'm trying to bring Harrison Construction into the modern era, but there's resistance from the old guard. Fifth time, and he just called me the old guard. In front of clients, I felt something shift in my chest. Not pain exactly. More like something breaking loose. Michael, I said carefully, can I speak with you outside for a moment? Dad, we're in the middle of a presentation. Whatever you need to say it here. We're all professionals. Chen was definitely uncomfortable now. I could see it. I continued presenting. Discussed our safety protocols, our insurance coverage, our bonding capacity. Every single section, Michael found something to criticize, correct, or undermine. When I discussed our safety record, he said my standards were overly cautious and cost time. Sixth time, when I mentioned our local subcontractor relationships, he said I was limiting our options by staying with familiar partners. Seventh time, when I outlined our quality control process, he called it excessive oversight that slows productivity. Eighth time, When I showed our portfolio of completed projects, he pointed out that most were Dad's older work, not representative of our current capabilities. Ninth time, when I discussed our warranty terms, he suggested they were too generous and cut into profit margins. 10th time, every single thing I said, he contradicted, corrected, or criticized. By the time we got to the project timeline details, Chen had stopped taking notes. He was just watching this play out like it was a car crash he couldn't look away from. I explained the phasing plan. Foundation work, structural steel, envelope, systems, interiors, finishes, standard sequence, proven approach. Again, this is my father's conservative methodology, Michael said. Modern project management allows for more parallel workflows. We could compress this significantly. 11th time, those parallel workflows increase risk, I said. Only if you're unwilling to embrace modern scheduling software and collaborative platforms, Michael replied. Which, respectfully, Dad, you are. You still use paper schedules and weekly check-in calls. It's 2024. 12th time, Patricia spoke again. Mr. Harrison. Which one? Michael joked. Nobody laughed. The senior Mr. Harrison, Patricia clarified. Is your son going to be the project manager on this job? Before I could answer, Michael did. I'll be overseeing it personally. My father would be involved in an advisory capacity, but day-to-day management would be mine. I didn't agree to that, I said. Dad, we discussed this. You're at the age where you should be stepping back, enjoying your retirement, playing golf. 13th time. He just told the client I was too old to manage the project. I'm not retired, I said. My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. I put them under the table. Not officially, Michael said. But let's be honest. After Mom died, you've lost some of your drive. It's understandable. You're grieving. But this project is too important to be managed by someone who's not fully committed. 14th time. He'd just told them I wasn't committed. Chen stood up. Gentlemen, I think we need to reschedule this conversation. Clearly, you have some internal issues to resolve. Mr. Chen, please, Michael said. I apologize for the confusion. My father and I are going through a transition period, but I can assure you, Harrison Construction is absolutely capable of delivering this project under my leadership. 15th time. He'd just apologized for me like I was a confused old man. I've seen enough, Chen said. Patricia, Thomas, let's go. Mr. Harrison, both of you, we'll be in touch. They walked out. We sat there in that conference room in silence. Michael was gathering his papers, casual, like nothing had happened. We just lost a $3 million contract, I said. No, Dad. You just lost a $3 million contract because you refused to modernize, refused to change, refused to let go of control. 16th time. I built that company. 40 years ago, Michael cut me off. Times have changed. You haven't. And that's why I'm meeting with Chen tomorrow, privately, to explain that Harrison Construction is undergoing new management. I'll get that contract back. 17th time. And that's when I knew. This wasn't about generational differences or modernization or any of the excuses he'd been making. This was a hostile takeover. My own son was systematically destroying my credibility so he could take over the company without having to buy me out or wait for me to actually retire. I drove home in silence, sat in my empty house, Sarah's reading chair still in the corner where she'd left it. I thought about everything I'd built, everything I'd sacrificed, the years in the trailer, the 18-hour days, missing Michael's baseball games because I was on job sites, all so he could have a better life than I did. And this is what I got. Public humiliation, systematic undermining, a planned coup. I could have confronted him, could have fired him, could have gone to a lawyer, but I didn't do any of those things. Because I remembered something Sarah used to say, slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. I made a plan. First, I went to the company accountant. Jenny had been with us for 12 years. I asked her for complete copies of all financials for the last 3 years. Every transaction, every contract, every payroll record. She asked why. I told her I was thinking about retirement planning, needed to understand the company's true value. She believed me. I got the files. I spent 2 weeks going through them. And I found things. Interesting things. Michael had been padding expense reports. Not hugely. A few hundred here. 1,000 there. Over 3 years. Maybe $30,000. Enough to be embezzlement, not enough to trigger automatic audits. More interesting. He'd been steering small contracts to a company called MHC Construction LLC. Small stuff. Subcontracting work that we'd normally do in-house. Over 3 years, we'd paid MHC about $200,000. I looked up MHC Construction LLC. Filed 6 months ago. Owner: Michael Harrison Construction. My son had set up a competing company and was funneling Harrison construction work to his own side business. That's fraud. That's self-dealing. That's breach of fiduciary duty. But I still didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I called James Chen. Mr. Chen, this is Robert Harrison. I want to apologize for what happened in our meeting. Mr. Harrison, I appreciate the call, but I think it's clear your company is dealing with some internal challenges. You're right, and I want to be transparent with you about what's happening. I told him everything. Not emotionally, not like a father betrayed by his son, professionally, matter-of-factly. I explained that my son had been systematically undermining me to position himself for control. I explained that he'd created a competing company. I explained the financial irregularities I'd found. I'm telling you this, I said, because if you do business with Harrison Construction under my son's management, you need to know who you're dealing with. A man who defrauds his own father's company will defraud yours. There was a long silence. What are you going to do? Chen asked. I'm going to make sure he never has the chance to defraud anyone else, I said. Chen said he'd think about it. Next, I called a lawyer. Not a family lawyer, a corporate attorney who specialized in fiduciary duty cases. I showed him everything I'd found. He told me I had multiple causes of action: embezzlement, fraud, breach of duty, civil, and potentially criminal. What do you want to do? He asked. I want to remove him from the company completely, and I want to make sure the entire construction industry in Arizona knows why. That's reputational damage. He could sue. Let him. I have the evidence. We drafted the papers. It took a week. During that week, I watched Michael operate. He came into the office every day, charming as ever. He'd stop by my office, ask how I was doing, make small talk about nothing, and the whole time, I knew he was planning to push me out and take everything. On a Friday morning, I called a company-wide meeting. All 15 employees. Mandatory attendance. Michael showed up late, coffee in hand, casual. Thanks everyone for coming, I said. I have some important announcements. Michael was leaning against the wall, half paying attention. First, effective immediately, Michael Harrison is terminated from Harrison Construction for cause. His head snapped up. What? Second, I'm filing a civil suit against Michael Harrison and MHC Construction LLC for embezzlement, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. He went pale. Dad, what are you? Third, I'm referring the matter to the Arizona Attorney General's office for potential criminal prosecution. The room was dead silent. You can't do this, Michael said. His voice was shaking. I can, and I am. I nodded to the lawyer standing in the corner. My attorney will explain your options. You can accept the termination and repay the funds you've stolen, or we can proceed with both civil and criminal action. Your choice. This is insane, Michael said. Over what? Some petty cash? A few small contracts? $230,000 over 3 years, I said. That's not petty cash. That's felony embezzlement. I handed him a file folder. This contains copies of all the evidence, the expense reports, the MHC contracts, the bank records showing you're the owner. The emails where you communicated with MHC using your personal email to avoid company detection. All of it. He opened the folder, flipped through it. His hands were shaking. Additionally, I said, I've contacted James Chen at Meridian Development. I've explained what you did in our presentation meeting and why. I've offered to personally manage the Meridian Tower project under new terms. He's accepted. Michael looked up. You can't. Dad, please. We can talk about this. We're family. Family, I repeated. You humiliated me 17 times in front of our biggest client. You've been stealing from the company for 3 years. You've been planning to push me out and take over. And now, you want to talk about family? I was trying to modernize. You were trying to steal, I said. There's a difference. He looked around the room. Every employee was watching. Some looked shocked. Some looked angry. Nobody looked sympathetic to him. If you contest this, I said, I will prosecute both civilly and criminally. You'll lose your general contractor's license. You'll never work in construction in Arizona again. Possibly never work in construction anywhere. But if you accept the termination, repay the funds, and dissolve MHC Construction, I won't press criminal charges. How am I supposed to repay $200,000? That's your problem. You have 60 days. My attorney will be in touch. I walked out of the conference room, left him standing there with all his former colleagues staring at him. That was 6 weeks ago. Michael tried to fight it at first, hired his own lawyer, threatened to countersue, said I was a bitter old man who couldn't accept that the industry had moved on without me. His lawyer sent letters. My lawyer sent better letters. 3 weeks in, Michael's wife filed for divorce. Apparently, she hadn't known about the embezzlement either, or the side company, or the fact that they'd been living beyond their means on stolen money. She was a junior associate at a law firm. She couldn't afford to be married to a potential felon. 4 weeks in, Michael came to my house. First time he'd been there since Sarah's funeral. He looked terrible, hadn't shaved, lost weight. Dad, please, he said. I'm sorry. I know I messed up, but you're destroying my whole life. No, I said. You destroyed your own life. I'm just making sure you face the consequences. I can't pay back $200,000. I don't have it. Then you should have thought of that before you stole it. What do you want from me? His voice broke. What do you want me to say? I don't want you to say anything, I told him. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to understand that you don't get to betray people and then ask for mercy when you get caught. I want you to understand that I'm not the confused old man you tried to make me out to be. He was crying now. You're my father, and you're my son, which makes what you did even worse. He left. I haven't seen him since. Yesterday, Michael's lawyer contacted mine. Michael is accepting the terms. He'll repay the money over 5 years. He's dissolving MHC Construction. He's signing a non-compete agreement that bars him from working in construction in Arizona for 10 years. The Meridian Tower project broke ground last week. I'm managing it personally, with Carlos as my lead foreman. James Chen told me he respects how I handled the situation. A lot of fathers would have swept it under the rug, he said. You did the right thing. I don't know if I did the right thing. I know I did the necessary thing. Harrison Construction is still mine. My name is still on the door. And when I retire, I'll sell it to someone who actually respects what it took to build it, not to someone who thinks they're entitled to it just because they share my DNA. Tonight, I'm sitting in Sarah's chair, the one I could never bring myself to move. I think about what she'd say about all this. She always wanted peace, always wanted us to get along, but she also believed in accountability. She believed that people had to face the consequences of their choices. Michael made his choices. 17 times in one meeting, and hundreds of times before that. He chose to undermine me. He chose to steal from me. He chose to try to take everything I'd built. So I made my choice too. Some people might say I was too harsh, that I should have forgiven him. That family is more important than money or pride. But this was never about money or pride. This was about respect, about integrity, about the principle that you don't get to destroy someone and expect them to smile and say it's okay. I'm 63 years old. I've built a successful company. I've been married to an amazing woman for 39 years. I've worked hard, played fair, and treated people right. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let anyone, even my own son, tell me that none of that matters. The business cards still say Harrison, Construction, founded 1982. They still have my name on them, and they always will.